Hello and welcome. We are currently in the racecourse of Mumbai, and joining me on the campaign trail is Milind Deora, who either is going to emerge as the giant slayer or potentially as the Bali ka Bakra. Welcome. Thank you so much for your time. It's good to catch you.
There are horses around here.
So you could be like a stallion, the champion rider as well. So there are many political metaphors doing the rounds.
Yes.
How's your campaign going?
Campaign's going well, and not something which is new to me. You know, it's South Mumbai is not unfamiliar.
But that was a Lok Sabha election.
But South Mumbai is South Mumbai. It's not that I've moved from the area I live in, worked in, from my Janma Bhumi, from my Karma Bhumi to another place. They are one and the same.
Worli is the bastion of the Thackeray family. Why would you then want to challenge the tiger in his den?
I would correct you there. I would say Worli is no doubt a traditional Shiv Sena stronghold. There was an MLA who was one of the longest serving MLAs called Dattaji Nalavade.
Sure.
And he served from here for a long time. NCP, part of the Congress alliance, won the election in 2009. A man called Sachin Ahir, a friend of mine who's now an MLC from the UBT faction. And then it went back to Sena. So it has been a Sena stronghold. So in some ways, but now in terms of the Lok Sabha elections, the higher vote share, the higher strike rate is with the Shiv Sena, which is led by Eknath Shinde. And, you know, for me, South Mumbai is the issues of Worli, the issues of Malabar Hill, the issues of Kolaba, the issues of even beyond South Mumbai as a parliamentary constituency are not very different. And I'll explain those to you in a second. But this battle is nothing personal. This battle is political. There's no doubt that Aaditya is a formidable opponent. There's no doubt that he's a significant face of the opposition and of the party he belongs to. And
you're sounding a little intimidated.
Not at all. I'm never intimidated. I mean, I fought my first election at the age of 27.
Yeah.
I fought against a union minister. At that point, I wasn't intimidated. So my skin is thick enough to not feel intimidated. And
so you wanted to fight in Worli or dhakka lage ke bheja gaya?
What happened? So there was a discussion internally between alliance partners, and the debate was that Aaditya is an outsider, and Worli, Rahul, is important to understand that unlike many other assembly constituencies in Mumbai, if you go to Malabar Hill, you won't have a feeling of a Malabar Hill Kar. You have that in Worli. There's a strong feeling that we want a local Worli Kar, and Dattaji Nalavade and others embodied that emotion. Aaditya was the first, I think, MLA who was an outsider. We did think internally that we should give it to a local Worlikar. In fact, there are many chalks you'll find in Worli named after people called Worlikar. You'll find many families here who live here who are called Worli, whose last name is Worlikar. We did think we should give it to a local person, a local Karyakarta, and make it a battle of a local Karyakarta versus Aaditya Thackeray. But then we thought of the pros and cons versus putting our best foot forward versus putting, is this our best foot, is that our best foot? And then we knew how the media, especially my friends like you in Delhi, would spin things differently. If we put a Sthanik Karyakarta and made it a Sadharan Karyakarta versus this leader who's imported, then the speculation would have risen, and conspiracy theories in Delhi would have said that this is a setting between Mr. Shinde and Mr. Uddhav Thackeray, and we're giving him a walkover.
No, but the risk for you is, one, you're a Rajya Sabha MP. So when I interviewed Aaditya today, he says you should have quit from the Rajya Sabha and then fought. He has the parachute of a Rajya Sabha seat. And if you lose, they'll say, वो Rajya Sabha के लिए ठीक है, party वाटी कर सकता है, ज़मीन पे आके नहीं लड़. So there's a big reputational risk you carry in this election.
Look, I'll tell you one thing. When he fought this election in 2019, two things. One is, as someone whose politics is in South Mumbai and Worli is a part of South Mumbai, I had great hope from him. I thought he would come here and do a lot of good things for this area, do a lot for Mumbai, do a lot for Maharashtra, be progressive. Unfortunately, that's not something that happened. Secondly, and I'll come to that in a bit. Secondly, when he came here, he displaced not one, but two Worlikar MLAs to get the seat. And then both of them were sent to the assembly. So I don't think he has any right to talk about whether I'm in the Rajya Sabha or whether I'm somewhere else. He displaced two local MLAs, sent them to the MLC to become an MLA himself. So and today there is anti-incumbency against him, which we'll come to. Now let me explain.
Let's come for a bit to where we are. This is the race course. There's a big fight taking place about how to use open spaces like this.
Mahalakshmi Racecourse is in the heart of Worli. It's actually where Worli begins, where the assembly constituency begins. Right over there is Malabar Hill. on the intersection of Haji Ali. Now, if you span around, if your cameraman were to span around, you would see this green space. If you look, for example, over there, you'll see buildings that...
Only very special people can get into that.
No, I'll show you that. You'll see that, yes, and that you'll see those buildings there, which were Safai Kamgar quarters. The conservancy staff of BMC, we helped build and reconstruct and give them permanent homes. Next to that, you'll see construction of some of the biggest towers where some of the wealthiest people in Mumbai and India live. Similarly, over here, what's happened in South Mumbai, and this is not unique to Worli, what's happened in South and Central Mumbai, this area, Rahul, was called Girangaon, which means the village of mill laborers. Because Mumbai was the textile hub of India, all the mills, the textile mills were in this area. And those mills, the textile industry ultimately collapsed. So what you're seeing really, and in a sense, Worli or the assembly constituency called Shivdi are really the heart of that, where you're seeing this dichotomy between Mumbai's traditional residents, original inhabitants, the Koli Samaj, the fishermen community, the original. In fact, the three original inhabitants of Mumbai were the Agri community, the Koli community and the Parsis. The dichotomy where these communities are giving way to these tall skyscrapers.
To know your dad.
Okay, nice to meet you.
You know who I am.
I'm on record. Can you mind if I talk to you in a bit?
Yeah, okay, no problem.
Thanks. So,
People would come and say, oh, I know who you are. This is South Mumbai. They say, you know who I am. तुम तो ठीक हो, तुम जानते हो मैं कौन हूँ. ये अलग है boss. Vibe भी अलग है.
He was kind enough to say he knew my dad, and people sort of, you know, as I said, this is a relationship we have which transcends. Many people, in fact, come and say, and that's something which has happened throughout my 20 years in politics, that people say I knew Murli Bhai very well.
Aaditya Thackeray's big point is that in the name of development, you're taking away all the spaces of Mumbai and turning them into concrete jungles and giving the locals, for example, the big debate about Dharavi rehabilitation, right? That this is basically corporates getting this, and because of your connections, the whole government is trying to help up prop corporates at the expense of the slum dwellers.
That's a narrative which he's copying from someone else, from another good friend of mine, not from Mumbai and Maharashtra, from another part of India.
Abhi bhi Rahul Gandhi dost hai aapne.
And who I not named anyone, and so where you know, criticize industrialists, spread fear. I would only wish that folks who do that would learn from the US election, would learn from 3 consecutive defeats in the Lok Sabha election. Let me come to race course. Race course is one of the biggest green lungs of this city. There was a lease between the Mumbai municipality and the race course. I believe it was a 99-year lease, which expired in the year 2013. At the time, Uddhav Thackeray ji, who didn't have any constitutional post, he was one of the senior leaders of his party, and Aditya, who had no post either, but ran the BMC, controlled the municipality, have been controlling it for 30 years. They said we are going to renew the lease between the Race Course Association that conducts these horse racing events for the ultra rich and the municipality, and we're going to build a theme park here. It came under a lot of flack. Few months ago, the municipality finally, after 11 years of the lease expiring, renewed the lease with the Race Course Association, and rather than just having this walking track open to the public and the rest left for the race course members, 120 acres of land in this race course has now come to the BMC.
What will they do with it?
It's going to be a public park of the level of a central park. 300 acres of open spaces right in the heart of South Mumbai. He's opposing that. Same strategy, trying to spread fear. But we've done it. And we're going to prove that this will become a world-class park. He said there's going to be a tower coming up here, which is complete, utter nonsense. It's not even reserved for that. It's reserved for open spaces. So this is just a fear psychosis. The same thing happened with the largest port in the country, Padhavan Port. The Bhumi Pujan happened recently in Palghar. I've been a shipping minister. I know how important port-led development is, especially for a coastal state like Maharashtra. Oppose that, finally that project's coming through. Oppose one of the biggest refineries in Maharashtra. Oppose the biggest nuclear power plant in the world in Konkan. Oppose the Mumbai Metro. Despite the fact I've grown up taking public transportation, taking trains and buses when I was a young boy. I don't think he's ever taken a train in his life in Mumbai or knows what it is for the average commuter. The Mumbai Metro seeks to decongest the north-south connectivity and the railways. Oppose that, led to a delay of 4 years, led to a cost escalation of 14,000 crore rupees paid for by the taxpayers. This speed breaker politics that he's practicing is unfortunate. I know him, I know his views. Unfortunately, he's gotten into that rut and he's gotten attracted to that style of politics where if you spread fear and you say that a green park, oh be careful, there's going to be a tower, people will vote for him.
But सारे project तो छोड़ के गुजरात जा रहे हैं.
I'll come to that.
Now Tata, Airbus,
I'll come to
Foxconn.
that.
No, but this is an important charge which needs to be addressed. The fact that industrialists or
My
companies
answer to that is
first
this.
announce that they want to come to Maharashtra, then something happens behind the scenes and they go to Gujarat.
My answer to that would be the following. Few years ago, when MVA was in power, a corrupt police officer was extorting money notoriously from industrialists, was planting gelatin sticks outside their home, trying to extort money from them. At the time, when he was caught, the then chief minister was asked, what do you have to say about this man who belonged to his party? He said, please don't compare him to Osama bin Laden. He's a good man. Chief minister giving a rogue police officer, a corrupt extortionist who's in jail, a clean sheet. You please tell me, if that is the situation that was happening to top industrialists, what would a small trader think? What would a small business owner feel? Would their confidence in
No,
Mumbai...
but it's your government now, the projects have still been leaving.
But what happened is, at that time, Maharashtra dropped, I think for the first time in Maharashtra's history, to number 2 in attracting FDI from in India. Maharashtra fell to the 2nd position. The last 2 years, it's come back to number 1. So, the fact is that this government will never encourage a rogue police officer, let alone give him or her a clean sheet. This government wants to take the city forward, state forward, which is why you're seeing massive infrastructure development. The third point, when you're opposing all these projects, you're Aaditya Thackeray, young man, he's opposing the metro, which is also funded by the center. Then he's saying center doesn't give us any assistance. He's opposing the Vadhavan port, which is the largest port in the country. Then he's saying center doesn't give us any assistance. He's opposing a central refinery. Then he's saying the center doesn't give us assistance. He's opposing the biggest nuclear plant in the world, which is a central project. Then he's saying central doesn't give us assistance. How do you want center to assist you when you're opposing everything? He has to answer for these things, right? His party must answer why they gave a clean sheet to a rogue police officer.
You spoke of corruption allegedly happening during Uddhav Thackerayji's time, but the fact is this khoka culture has happened on Shindeji's watch, who's now your boss.
What is khoka culture?
This whole thing that, there's some charge by the ED, they switch over, and the big charge in Mumbai political circles about how many crores were paid to these MLAs to allegedly move from one party to another.
Allegedly is very different from a police officer being caught red-handed, going to jail, and the chief minister giving him a clean sheet. A lot of allegations. This is politics. Politics, there are many allegations. I'm saying, when you know for a fact that there are extortionist elements in your government, the least I would expect, if I was the chief minister, it can happen. But you should say, I'm conducting a free and fair inquiry, a time-bound inquiry. Let the inquiry come out, after which we'll take action. At least that's a good answer. You're giving someone a clean sheet. You're saying, don't compare him to Osama bin Laden. Obviously, people will flee. And I'll give you a very good example. The Diamond Hub. The Diamond Hub of Asia. Now, even Hong Kong has been, in some ways, people have left Hong Kong because of the problems that happened in Hong Kong, because of China's clampdown on Hong Kong. The Diamond Hub largely is in Mumbai, the Diamond Bourse. I had the privilege of inaugurating that Diamond Bourse. My father and I have helped to push it through. The Diamond Bourse, after these extortionist attempts, chose to move to Surat. They've now come back to Mumbai. The Surat story has collapsed.
Because they didn't enjoy being in Surat.
But why did they choose to go there in the first place? They didn't enjoy being in Mumbai. Why did they not enjoy being in Mumbai? Because they were afraid of extortion. So, these are things which anyone can allege something. Someone's made money, someone's taken money. The fact is, when you create an environment in the financial capital, the economic hub of the country, which is not conducive to doing business, you do get an effect where you fall to number 2 in FDI. You have businesses leaving Maharashtra. When you oppose central projects, obviously then which central project will come here? Why would a center be interested in, why would an investor be interested in coming here? An investor wants a positive climate. How else can you explain that in the last 2 years, in the last year alone, that 52% of foreign direct investment that has come into India, Rahul, has come to Maharashtra?
You spoke of the US elections. You've had, over the decades, a long-standing relationship with the Trump family, particularly the younger generation. How do you see that play out in the India-America context, and particularly for Maharashtra, given that there are lots of Trump towers here?
Well, you know, I don't think the Trump towers are owned by the Trump family. I think they just lease out their brand. And I happen to know his son, Don Jr. In fact, I know him through the person who manages their brand here. He was a very close friend of mine. And look, my honest answer in terms of, I also, know Robert Kennedy, who's Jr., who stood as a president, who probably will, and he stood as an independent in the presidential election and then supported President Trump. I think there's few things which we can expect. One is that, and I say this as someone who's seen my father work very closely behind the scenes as early as the 80s to deepen ties between India and the US. And I remember how inconvenient it was for him to do that. He used to have a friend called Steve Solaris, who was a Democrat congressman from New York, who used to get flack for saying, let's work closely with India. He had a very close friend called Larry Pressler, the legendary Senator Larry Pressler, Republican, who had the Pressler Amendment, which prevented $5 billion of American aid to Pakistan. My father used to work with Republicans, Democrats. Very tough to convince Capitol Hill partner with India. I think today that relationship has transcended a Milind Deora, a Larry Pressler, a President Trump, a Prime Minister Modi, President Obama, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. It's reached a people-to-people relationship, government-to-government relationship, business-to-business relationship. There's a convergence of strategic interests, there are convergence of economic interests in terms of strategic technologies. But having said that, I think it would be wrong for any person who follows what's happening between the US and India to assume that because President Trump might be hawkish on China, he's necessarily going to be very good with India on...
No, he's very transactional. Yeah, sure.
I would say that on strategic military issues, whether it comes to the Indo-Pacific, I'm a board member of one of the largest, it's the largest organization on Arctic issues called the Arctic Circle. The Arctic is another flashpoint. People all focus on the South China Sea, but no one's thinking what's going to happen 10 years down the line in the Arctic as ice melts and new shipping routes are created over the northern sea route over Siberia. From the Indo-Pacific to the Arctic, I think we'll see greater strategic cooperation and partnership between India and the US, between the Quad. But I don't think, this is my personal view, that we should expect the US to bend backwards for India when it comes to trade.
Sure.
We will look out for what's in our interest. We want to reduce our dependence on Chinese supply chains. We want to encourage manufacturing here. We are using production-linked incentives to do that. And America has a variant of the chip. They have the CHIPS Act. We have semiconductor PLIs. We are both doing that. If it reaches a stage where things will clash, I was with Piyush Goyal, in fact, this morning in a program. If it reaches a stage, we have to look out for our interests. They will look out for their interests.
Milind, you're as quintessentially typical a Congress person coming from a Congress family as any. And the Shinde faction of the Shiv Sena is as much the antithesis of where one would stereotypically expect to see you. How has this transition been from being in Rahul Gandhi's charmed inner circle to now flanking Eknath Shinde?
I'm not sure what that meant by that. I don't know if that's a compliment or a...
No, it's just
I'm who I am. I'm interested in local issues, regional issues, national issues, global issues. My late father Rahul had a very interesting global perspective, but he had a very, very, very local perspective. He came from, of course, much humbler roots than I did, and knew what was the pulse of Mumbai, Chandanwadi, people living in chawl, slums, came with 500 rupees in his pocket. So, to me, and I really believe that in a world today, whether it's India or the US, where the world is so deeply divided by ideology, the left doesn't talk to the right. The left thinks we have to destroy the right thinks we have to destroy the left. The same is true in your profession as well. I really believe that my fundamental value in politics, which honestly my late father taught me, is in polarized times, especially in polarized times, how do you reach across the aisle to get things done. And right here in Worli, it's not a personal battle. It's about really doing something to take Mumbai forward. And I'll tell you why I'm passionate about it. The projects that we are seeing being implemented, I have personally, if you look at my 2004 speeches when I fought my first election, I spoke about the need for the MTHL project, which is now called the Atal Setu, which, by the way, JRD Tata envisioned, I think, in the 60s.
Sure.
The coastal road, north-south connectivity, the metro to augment and reduce the congestion. Finally, there is a government that is getting things done. Finally, the state and centre are converging to do these things. Finally, there is an activist mindset to oppose for the sake of opposing. Now, I wouldn't want to name a friend of mine who was a minister in the UPA government. Navi Mumbai Airport. This airport, the current airport, is dangerously close. We had a recent scare recently. I raised that issue in Parliament in the last session. It's one of the busiest single runway, it's the busiest single runway airport in the world. The Navi Mumbai Airport should have been commissioned 7 years ago. Dr. Manmohan Singh gave green clearance as Prime Minister and as Environment Minister to that airport. A minister in his government overturned his decision, who became Environment Minister after him. That kind of activist politics, I believe that people who do those things, there's nothing personal against them, but they should be punished. They're punishing Mumbai, they're punishing Maharashtra, they're punishing India by not taking it forward. So to me, it's not a local issue. This is not a local election. It's where my city is headed. The state has much more powers to determine the path and future of your city than, let's say, the center does. So these are things I'm passionate about. So when you say you've come from this background, that background, I've always been very clear in my heart that politics has to be about doing something good for your neighborhood. And you know, Rahul, as I said, this is my Janma Bhumi, Karma Bhumi. There are politicians in every party who live in one place, but they go take a train and then they fight elections from another place. I don't have that, if you want to call it a luxury. What happens in South Mumbai affects me directly. If there's a traffic jam, it affects me. If there's air pollution which is unbearable and causing a sinus infection, it affects me directly.
That way, Bombay is becoming like Delhi.
In air pollution? It's not. It's different from Delhi because, you know,
But pollution was never really a big problem here. It now has become.
Air pollution was not in terms of suspended particulate matter, in terms of the AQI level, but it's become a problem, and it's become a. Delhi is different because Delhi is because of smog, stubble burning from Haryana and Punjab, which the Supreme Court came down on heavily recently. Mumbai has a very different, unique air pollution problem. Is it a serious problem? Absolutely. Our children, my own child, are they coughing more and more in the last year and 2 years during the winter? Yes. But that's largely linked to construction activity. And when I say construction activity, not necessarily new buildings being built, but largely linked to two projects. One was the metro, a lot of digging, and two is the reclamation of the land for the coastal road. The good news is that both those projects, the worst part in terms of dust, which contributes to AQI, is behind us. But because Mumbai has a unique problem as compared to Delhi, where we have dust from construction, I also think we have to work very hard to mitigate that. The BMC, the municipality, has measures. They have norms which say you have to, real estate developers have to spray water on their projects so the dust settles, which is why during the rains in Mumbai, you see AQI is like Sydney. And so those have to be implemented. Those things, unfortunately, are not being implemented.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation, for taking out time in a very hectic period and joining us for this lovely walk in the Mahalakshmi Racecourse. Thank you very much. Interesting to see. You're saying that there's a nice public park coming up. I look forward to when it's not just these riders inside, but there are other people who can use more of this space.
This will be used by the RWITC, the Royal Western India Turf Club. There will be races. We don't want to say this is only, but it will be open to the public. There will be some form. The vision is for a central park. Now, what will that central park look like? Time will tell. We certainly need to be vigilant on the municipality, because politicians may have a positive vision, but ultimately, how does the bureaucracy implement it? That's a separate issue for which we need to continue to be vigilant. I'm not going to shy away from that. But the intention is not to build a skyscraper, as Aaditya would have people believe. It's to genuinely throw open 300 acres of public land to the city of Mumbai.
In the next few days, we are about to find out whether you end up as a giant slayer or Bali ka Bakra.
These are terms which I leave to you and your profession. I'm very clear, South Mumbai, whether I'm in power, not in power, when I'm not an MP or I'm not an MLA, there are 100 people outside my office every day who I assist in whatever way I can. I know that that's more than the current MP. I know that that's more people than the current MLA of this area. And that gives me solace and happiness that people still come to us. They know where we work, regardless of whether we are in power, regardless of whether our government is in power.
Well, I wish you all the best. Thank you very much, Milind, for joining us. Thank you. Thank you very much.